You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey, it's good to be back for episode 8 of Cards to the Moon, a podcast where we talk about all different aspects of the hobby we love. I'm Clark, joined with Hyung and John. And now before we get into the topic of the day, at the time of this taping, we know now who the 2021 NBA champs are. So congrats to Giannis and the rest of the Milwaukee Bucks. Guys, how do you feel about Giannis cards now? You know, especially after that impressive 50-point Game 6 and all.
I'll let John go first because I think he was he was kind of against
the Giannis hater.
Yeah. So, I let him go first.
Giannis is making me eat my words. Good for him. I'm happy for Giannis, man. He's truly a player that committed to a city, and right from the beginning, said, I think somebody showed like one of his like 2014 tweets where he's like, I'm staying in Milwaukee till we win a championship.
Yeah.
Stayed true to those words. And he
crazy. He
re-signed that monster contract, and man, good stuff, man. I'm happy for him. But yeah, I'm going to eat my words on sports car value of Giannis. It's obviously going to take off right now. But
yeah, it's hot.
Yeah,
for sure.
Good for him.
No, I sent you guys that video of him going through Chick-fil-A with the trophy, and I mean that. How
awesome.
can you not love that, right? But so I'm pretty happy about it. Like he did it with a very average team, and that says a lot about it. He said he was gonna do it, and he did it, and you know what? He's on another level, and I think cards are gonna continually, go positive for him. At least the higher value. I seen, a couple of people unloading some big cards on, the high rollers groups on Facebook. But yeah, I'm all for it.
Nice. Yeah, that's all I'm seeing on my Instagram feed now. Giannis cards, high-end Giannis cards. And everyone's wondering like how much it's going to go for now.
Yeah.
But
this is a sell high. For
sure. And the only thing I'm pissed off about is, after that episode where Hyung and I were, pumping Giannis and John was dumping Giannis. I didn't go pick one up after that show, so now I'm kind of like everyone else. I don't want to buy high, but his card value. I just checked right now. It's like I think his base Panini Prism. You could have got it for sub 2,000 for the longest time, like for the last month or 2 months, and now it's like almost 3,000 after the championship. Yeah,
dude,
so
the select was going for like $750, I think, at a low point. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Hey man, Chris Middleton, put some respect on the name.
That's true. He did say
Giannis balls out. He goes out 45 minutes as a beast, and then minute 46, 47, 48. Chris Middleton, man, that guy's an assassin.
Yeah, he was clutch for sure. I'll give you that. Yeah. All right, awesome. Let's get into today's hobby headlines. We're going to talk about one aspect of the hobby we haven't touched upon yet, but it's definitely a fast-growing part of the hobby, and that's breakers. So for those who are unfamiliar with breakers or group breaking in the hobby, it's essentially when you open or break boxes and cases of sports cards with other collectors, and it's generally more affordable than buying your own box or case since you split the cost with the people you're breaking with. Now, so-called breakers will facilitate the opening of these boxes and cases, and they usually source them and then they would open them live online usually, although you can meet in person if it works out, and they'll take a small cut for their services. Now there are multiple breaking formats, which we'll get into a sec, but one of the more popular formats is usually where you can buy into a break where a sports team will be randomly selected for you, and whatever cards are unpacked from your selected team, you receive at the end. But you can also participate in a break where you can select your team with a premium placed on teams that have a higher number of hits, right, in the box or in the case. So for instance, for baseball boxes and cases, you'll likely pay significantly more if there's a chance you can hit a Shohei Ohtani or Mike Trout autograph card. So if you were looking to buy the LA Angels for your break. So that's a quick explainer on what breaks are and what breakers do. So guys, turning it over to you now. What are your general thoughts on breaking in the hobby, and how's your experience been with it?
I'm personally a fan of breaking because you touched upon it. Like, sometimes it's not affordable, to just rip hobby boxes. So it gives you an opportunity to kind of chase, maybe it's a team or a particular player, right? So I've had great experience with breakers. So I've personally hit some stuff, and I know it's it created like a profession, like almost an industry for people, right? And it goes. It's interesting because I always say this, it ties into the base game, the fluctuation of the base game, because a lot of people end up, cashing out on base stuff or getting them graded, and it kind of drives that base game up and down, right? With the breakers, right? So I've also hit, big cards with breakers. So there's a good chance that you could hit something, right? As well. So it's an alternative way of, we talked about ripping retail last week. So it's kind of like a different format. You don't have the fun, I would say, as like actually ripping, but I do enjoy it. Right. It reminds me of, like you walk into a casino, because that's essentially what you're doing, right? And your breakers are your table games, and then your Raz,
right?
The people who run Raz, that's your slot machines right there.
It's a good analogy.
Oh man, there is I think the dark side of breaking, is the whole gambling aspect. I think there's a lot of people out there that if they can't control themselves, this is a form of gambling, right? So that is a potential dark side. But overall, I'm a big fan. I've never entered a break. I'm not like Hyung. I'm not a high roller. But
not quite, but
but not to say I didn't want to. Like I would love to try break. It looks like a lot of fun. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. I've watched videos of live breaks of Hyung entering the break, and I would watch him, and
I'll take a screenshot when I hit something. I'm like, yeah.
And then some of our other buddies. So it's an experience. It's fun.
Sure.
And I think more importantly for some of these card shops, it's a very creative way of being able to sell stock, right?
Yeah.
Like
for sure.
a lot of these card shops that don't do this, they sit on stock.
Product.
They sit on product. They could have boxes, online. You can purchase it online. But there's just something about when you're in the moment and you're live streaming for 5 hours and you're bringing out box after box and people are watching, and it's just when in Rome, like you're just in the moment. You're like, okay, I'm gonna go in on this box, and it's a very creative way for these shops to move product, right? So I'm all for it. I'm all for these shops being able to make money, people making money off the hobby. Overall, I'm a fan, but I do know that there is a dark side to it as well, because it is like a form of gambling. But
yeah, all great points, guys. I think you're bang on with the gambling analogy. Like there's so many parallels to it. And so as long as you're having fun with it, that's the key. Same as gambling, right? So you got to know your limits. But yeah, I encourage you, at least Johnny, to participate in one. It's fun. I haven't done a lot either, but I've done a few, and I feel like it's like the equivalent of watching someone else play video games if you're just watching.
And some people will say, why don't you just play the video game, right? But I guess some people are satisfied.
But you know what? At the same time, it's a thing now, right? Like on
everything's
Discord,
digital, right?
people,
like you kind of like just see it live, and it's just
like entertainment.
for sure,
almost.
Absolutely,
for sure, 100%.
I remember during COVID last year, like the whole in 2020 June or whatever. It must have been like, stimulus checks pumping out or whatever, but everybody was ripping Prism. I remember, like, I was joining breaks in, like, basketball. I remember Obsidian first off the line, like, hobby boxes were out, so people were dropping like crazy amounts of money during that time, and that's when I was like, breaking like ripping or joining breaks for basketball, and I would try to land the Memphis or the Pelicans, right, because of Zion and Ja, and I ended up landing a case of Hobby Choice. Optic Choice, and I landed Memphis for. I mean, it's not cheap, but you're in on a case, and I ended up hitting a decent job. It was like a red green dragon, and
nice.
but yeah, it's a huge gamble, but just like with anything, the return was incredible. It kind of paid for more than the break itself, and then you kind of use that money for more breaks, right? So I think it's just like it's just a train. Once you do hit, it's like you pull in a hobby box, you get a big hit, and then you justify, oh, I'm good, I got this, So it's definitely fun.
For sure. Well, I definitely, the one point you made before, it's great for participating in high end products, like things you definitely probably wouldn't be able to afford yourself, or you don't want to spend that kind of cash on a whole box or case yourself. So it's a great way just to get in on it, even though it's a gamble, but at least you have a shot at one of these big hits. And I think on the other end, I've actually joined a couple of breaks where it's just regular boxes where I don't really want to spend it just for myself. Like, I know there's a lot of base, but I want to just kind of open up some packs to see if I can get a hit or just do it for fun. So for example, like I did one last year when Allen and Ginter, Topps Allen and Ginter, just released their Chrome edition. Like, they haven't done that before. So the Allen and Ginter Chrome, and it's like, it was a novelty set, and I don't want to buy one for like $150 myself, knowing that the hits weren't great. You know what I mean? Right. I think an auto wasn't even guaranteed, right? So, but I wanted to kind of see and rip and see what see how those cards looked. So I just participated in a cheap break. Right.
And you get to watch the whole
thing.
The base. Yeah. And then when they pull the card that you didn't hit, you're like, I should have picked that team.
Exactly. Yeah. Or like actually the one I participated in is like they opened 6 boxes, like half a case. So you have fun just ripping one box after another. So it doesn't have to be super expensive. Like, you could just participate in something like that.
Yeah, for sure. There's a guy, he's a buddy of mine. I met him through Instagram and everything, and this was kind of like before the hobby blew up, but it's kind of interesting seeing like people kind of like grow and kind of pivot where they kind of made it. And it's Chris Costa at Big Night Sports Break, and they're huge out of Boston, and he has this whole operations of like, it's like literally a production studio. And I thought I thought it was like so creative. I'm just like, this thing is a big time production studio. And then what he also does is mystery like dime packs. That's kind of like a different vibe on breaking, where he's doing like a all dime bags, he calls it. So all PSA 10. So there would be like 30 PSA 10 dime bags. You don't know what, they're all numbered, and you basically enter, and then they rip it live, right? Or they sometimes mail it to you. I know Phil Hughes does like a mystery pack where he just mails it and you open it. And and then you could, I remember it was like maybe a couple $100, but then one of my friends hit a Tatum Prism PSA 10 that was going for like 800 at the time, right? So there's different creative people out there that take it to the next level, right? And it's awesome to kind of see these breakers kind of I think he had like NBA players, the guys on the Celtics, on his breaks and stuff like that, which is cool. So yeah, there's a lot of people that kind of started from nowhere and really created a brand or their own identity through breaking,
for sure.
So I've gotten to see it from start to finish, which is pretty cool. But just seeing the transition between all these breakers and where they came from and where they started. Like John said, like, I know a lot of card stores, they do well because, breaking kind of saved them, right? During that hobby time. So yeah.
Speaking of like, yeah, you're right. Like there's so many different creative ways that breakers are, doing their thing. But for you, Hyung, since you've participated in a few yourself, is there a format that you particularly enjoy?
You know what? I actually do. Like, for instance, like Bowman's a perfect example where, like I love first chrome. Like I think I personally like ripping Bowman, 2020 Bowman, 2019 Bowman, any Bowman, because you're going to get the superstars in kind of that set. It doesn't come after in Bowman Chrome. It's actually Bowman. And then, so it's paper rip. And then the chrome is your kind of hit with first chrome autos, right? So you're guaranteed autos there. But obviously, that's kind of like, at the time where in January when the season hype is going, everything's going, so it goes for a premium or it's all sold out in local card stores, right? So, yeah, I think those are perfect products to break and like a pick your team, So for instance, if I guess 2021 Austin Martin was in Bowman, you'd pay for the Toronto Blue Jays spot, right? Hoping that on the first chrome hit you hit an auto, and probably prices would be, I don't know what prices are now, but maybe it's a couple $100, right? So instead of buying like, one hobby box, you go in a break on the player, maybe it's a half case or a full case, and you're paying a couple $100 and you hit like a Austin Martin, first chrome or even color, you know how much those color parallels go. And I like pick your own team in that scenario where, there's really, I guess, a high ceiling for such a low kind of like commitment, right? So, and then you don't want the other cards, right? So you get to see the whole case, right? So you're just kind of like rooting for that one team. So I really like that format of pick your team, but I mean there's so many different formats, but people do like pick your player, which I wouldn't even want to even try to do that, right? Like how many players are in baseball, but yeah, my favorite thing is pick your own team.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point, especially if you know what you want, you know what I mean? Like you're favoring, and even if it's like something for your personal collection, pick your team is perfect for you, as long as it's not one of those more expensive teams where everyone's trying to get the big hit, right? Like a Shohei or a Trout. That's why I kind of like, I'm cheap, so I like the random teams. Like it's like the gamble before the gamble.
Right.
Yeah. When they like,
I always laugh at that.
Mix up the team.
The mini Raz. The mini Raz before the Raz.
100%.
I have the worst luck too. Like I got Tampa Bay Rays once, and the best card I got was like Blake Snell, who sucks right now. Like when he was on the Rays. And then like in football, I got Cincinnati Bengals. This is before Joe Burrow. Like it's just, so it could definitely blow up in your face. But you got a shot. You got a shot at one of the bigger teams. And then
you have to gamble again. Because it's not guaranteed that you're going to hit anything. You're like, yes, I got the team I want. And then it's like, you hit nothing.
You get the Grizzlies, and that was the only case where there's no Ja Morant.
That's so funny.
That would be the worst. But so and then I've seen like, pick your division. Like there's some things like that for football that could be fun for hardcore football fans. Like it's one thing I'll add to the conversation is that because of the boom of the hobby, things might have died down right now, but because of the boom relatively recently, there's so many people trying to break. And you got to find like the ones that are legit, the ones that are well organized, they have their shipping all in order, and so like look out for when you start researching which breakers you want to go with. Look out for some of those things, like read the FAQs on their site. And I think for, maybe Hyung, you know a lot more now, but when I started getting into the hobby again, like 3-4 years ago, most of the breakers were in the States and none of them really shipped to Canada. So that was an issue too. So I had to look for ones where they would ship internationally and would ship it for free or for low cost.
For sure. Yeah. It wouldn't be worth it at that point. Yeah, for sure.
One break that I regret not going into that I was watching on eBay like nonstop was Panini 1-in-1.
Oh yeah.
So I can't remember when it came out. It was last summer or something like that. But I remember when it came out, nobody knew what the product was. I watched a couple of breaks and I was like, oh, it's one, like a case break would be pretty much 12 cards. It's one card per box, right?
Right.
And most formats for Panini 1-in-1 was like a specific player. But I regret not going a little bit harder because at that time, before the hype grew, before anybody knew what Panini 1-in-1 was, a lot of those breaks were fairly affordable. And I think not a lot of people knew. I certainly didn't know that like the Kawhi Leonard shot over the Philadelphia, like the timeless moments have become that little subset has become the biggest set.
Vince Carter card was in that, right?
Amazing.
Yeah. And they all signed with silver signatures or gold signatures, and it's like, they're beautiful. Like, I regret not going harder. At least entering one of those breaks, I was really tempted, and I kind of backed off. But knowing where they are now, I was like, I should have gotten in on one.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Regrets.
Hyung, you mentioned you had some success in past breaks. Like, what are some of the hits that you've gotten?
Oh man, I've the most recent. I haven't entered any recent breaks, but the most recent would be probably, I wouldn't say most recent, but the best memorable break for me was I entered a Bowman break, and it was Bowman draft actually, and I was going after Robert Hassel. And I remember it went for cheap for a half case because they're selling half cases, and I'm like, should I do case A, like half case A or half case B, or should I just buy both? Like, and then I was like, what if like Hassel's in this one, right? And so I ended up going for the first part of the case, and I picked San Diego, and unfortunately I didn't hit any first chromes, but I ended up hitting 2 numbered insert colored autos, like a gold out of 50 auto Hassel. It was like draft nights or whatever, or class of whatever, and then another insert auto that was numbered to like 199, right? So I ended up getting, and that was like in half a case, so it's like it was pretty exciting because they're big hits, because those are the big hits in that case, right? So I remember I watched a full case, and the next half there's absolutely nothing, right? So I mean that was the most memorable actually one, because if you think about it, I spent like $45 or $50 on that, and then you get like nothing, 2 colored autos of one of the more highly touted prospects of that 2020 Bowman, right? So 2021 or 2020, so
nice. Yeah,
crazy.
I don't have anything to share because all my hits are crappy, but at least I got the base cards. All right, so I hope that was educational for those who are new to the hobby and was always wondering what breakers do and what breaks are. So I think it's a good time now to move on then to our top 5 segment. And Johnny, you're up again. So which player did you pick to make up your top 5 sports card list?
So me being a father of 2 girls, being a girl dad, I felt it was appropriate to start to show some respect to the women in sports cards. So I'm actually not going to pick a particular person, but I'm going to call it the top 5 women in sports cards that I personally think you should collect. So number 1 on the list, we talked about her before. It's one of the greatest female athletes of all time, if not may go down as the greatest, is Serena Williams. Her 2003 Net Pro. I tried to do some research on it. I still don't know the history behind Net Pro. I would love if one of our listeners knew, and they can give us a little bit of a history rundown of when it came out in 03, what is the difference between the standard product and the event edition and some of the other nuances about it. But 2003, Serena Williams, number 1 spot. She's going to go down as the GOAT.
For sure.
And tennis is one of those sports where arguably, women's tennis could be more popular than men's tennis. It's a lot. I personally think it's a lot more fun to watch. They're way bigger rallies. I find men's is sort of like serve ace, serve ace, serve ace.
Yeah.
Whereas women's, they go back and forth, right? It's really exciting. So it's I think if you're going to start to target a lot of women, I think tennis is a big one, because it competes like viewership, everything. It competes right up there with the men. So yeah, Serena Williams, number 1 spot. Number 2, I'm going to go with Alex Morgan. USA Soccer with the women's World Cup happening. I believe it's next year. I think there's a good opportunity. Alex, in North America especially, Alex Morgan's probably she's the face of one of the big faces of USA Soccer. USA Soccer, women's soccer, arguably is also more popular than men's soccer. And I think there's an opportunity between now and leading up to next year's World Cup where you can really kind of take advantage of Alex Morgan cards. 2011 Upper Deck, I believe, is her actual rookie card. I'm not really a fan of it. It does kind of look like it looks a little cheap. There is a 2011 SP Game Used card. It's not. There's no relic on it. It's just called Game Used, and it's numbered to $4.99. That is a great card. I think it goes for quite expensive. Like we're talking probably over $1,000. And then another alternative would be the first issue of Panini Select. So 2017, Alex Morgan has a Panini Select. I think that's a great alternative to the rookie card. So I'm going to go Alex Morgan number 2. Number 3, I think with the the rise of women's sports coming kind of more into the forefront of ESPN highlights and TSN here in Canada. I think it's only right that WNBA is at the forefront of a lot of this, right? So we're going to go with Sabrina Ionescu. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. I could be very wrong on that. But she is the new face of the WNBA. She got injured, but there was a lot of hype when the 2020 Prism released, and that was her rookie card. I think she's an amazing player. I think she's going to win championships. So she's definitely a modern player to target, and seeing the rise of WNBA and the popularity in WNBA, I think she's a good person to target. So she's high on the list.
Nice.
Number 4, again, I think with the rise of WNBA, I'm going to stick to basketball, and I'm going with Candace Parker. She doesn't have many cards. I think there's like a 2008 press pass that some people might consider sort of like her entry rookie. But really, any of the modern cards like 2020 Prism, I know 2019 Optic, Candace Parker is pretty popular. She's going to go down as one of the greatest WNBA players of all time. She's already started as like a huge media career. She's had a blazing start in the media game, so she's going to be a face that's going to be around for a very long time, whether she's on the court or off the court. So I really like Candace Parker. I really like her in general, and even as an investment, I think Candace Parker could be a good one. And then lastly, I'm going to go with Naomi Osaka. Her main card is the 2019 Topps Tennis Hall of Fame. It's a pretty expensive card. I didn't see the sales, but they go well over $1,000 US. She is numbered. I think she's a second ranked right now. She made headlines a couple of weeks ago for bowing out of the French Open because of she was battling some mental issues and bravely came out and spoke her mind. I think Naomi is, again, she's in tennis, one of the forefront women's, sports that arguably, is more fun to watch and a bigger viewership than men's. And she's kind of a part of pop culture. So I think she's going to be a big name to come in the future. So, number 5, Naomi Osaka. So that's my top 5 women in sports cards.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
It's a good top 5.
I'm literally scrolling on eBay right now, just trying to look, because this is a new territory to me for me, so I'm just trying to catch up here. Yeah. So, but go on.
I know. I think it's an underrated play. Like looking for, I think in particular your WNBA picks are pretty underrated plays. Like I think, it's sneaky. Like I feel like there's a lot of room to grow, and I think I've heard, I can't even remember where I heard, but with the WNBA Prism release, I think that was I think it did a lot better than people expected.
And people were ripping. That was a hot rip. I remember people ripping that like crazy.
For sure. But yeah, I thought you were going to leave Naomi Osaka out for a sec, and then you saved her for number 5. I would have personally moved her up a bit myself.
Yeah, I could see that.
And she has a Sports Illustrated rookie card as well. One of those like perforated.
SI for
she
kids.
Does. Yes,
SI for kids, exactly.
Yeah, those are the cards to get for sure.
Yeah.
Love those. But I guess one bone to pick. No love for Bianca Andreescu, our Canadian gal tennis player.
I know. I'm sorry, Bianca. I'm sorry.
I was thinking Nancy Kerrigan or something like that.
No, there's some. I mean, there's some big names. This is my top 5, but like I know a lot of people are trying to target Mia Hamm. That's another big one that I've seen.
Yeah, Mia Hamm.
She's got
that's huge.
She's got one of those Sports Illustrated perforated like Tiger Woods cards. She's really big.
And she had a recent sale. Mia Hamm had a recent sale that broke a record, some kind of record, like one of her rookie cards.
Oh,
so
no
she's
way.
She's definitely big. Yeah,
really?
Sure.
Yeah.
There's like Danica Patrick. I don't know if her cards are actually huge, but she's like
in racing.
She was one of the trailblazers in women's racing. Like she's a big one too. So.
Or if you're sticking with soccer, Megan Rapinoe is pretty big.
Yeah. 2011. I think the stickers. They sell for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, and then WNBA like Taurasi and like Sue Bird and then those. I mean, they're legends on the court right now. So I think those are good ones too.
Oh, and while you're seeing your list, I almost forgot. Like, if you count UFC, for example, like Ronda Rousey.
Yeah,
that's true. UFC.
Forgot about
sure.
UFC. Mm-hmm.
I would have included that, but yeah, now that we're talking about it, like there's a lot of others you can include in your personal top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
But
I think women in general, as their popularity in sports is now legitimately rising, and people are taking it more seriously. There's definitely an opportunity here to try and take advantage. There's huge plays all around.
Yeah.
Strictly starting from 2003 Net Pro Serena Williams. We talked about it before, like one of those cards you can just buy on the cheap and just lock it up in the safe, right?
For sure. On a side note, what do you think about the Olympics? How that's going to impact hobby cards? Do you think there's going to be a bump?
I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah. I don't know. I always try guessing the hobby. It's always the opposite, so it's probably the opposite's going to happen. So yes, there you go.
It is a weird year, right? Like a lot of people don't care about the Olympics this year because of COVID, obviously.
Yeah.
And like I don't know if people realize the Olympics officially starting in a couple of days.
Yeah,
too, right?
I think the hype isn't as high as it usually is for sure.
Right.
Yeah. The only reason why I say that is because we talk about soccer. I think the U.S. team are in as well, right? I don't even know, but I'm assuming they are. So I wonder if they would see a bump. But World Cup for sure for soccer. I would, if you believe in that play, you should start stocking up now for your favorite players.
Yeah, there's some opportunity for sure.
All right. That's cool, John. I like the twist on the top 5. You always do things a little differently, eh? But,
hey, man, I stuck with the 5. I stuck within
true.
the parameters of the rules.
That's true.
Tried my best not to cheat.
It's all good. All right. So our final segment of this podcast episode then is Ready to Launch. And for our loyal listeners who have been listening since episode 1, we did this in the very first episode. And we're bringing it back for episode 8. And what it is we choose one card that we think is being slept on, but we are personally bullish on right now, and we think it's about to launch into the stratosphere at some point. So one card that you think's ready to launch. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I want to say Topps Chrome Update 2018 Juan Soto. HMT 55. I really believe, and people are seeing it now, ever since the All-Star break, you see, what Juan Soto's been doing, and all of a sudden his card prices are, and then you look at his numbers and you're like, okay, it's just like people are saying it's a down season or whatever. It's like his numbers are pretty impressive. I mean, this guy's leading the league in walks and on-base percentage. He's hitting over 300 now, 16 bombs midway through the season. He's He's 22 years old. So, think Vladdy.
Crazy.
Vladdy's young, but Vladdy's doing it for the first time. This guy already won a World Series and a batting title, and he's 22 years old. So and on top of that, the scarcity of his cards, right? So he doesn't have a lot of rookie cards. So that Topps Chrome update, even though it has a high population, I think I checked pricing. It was like $300 for a PSA 10. I've seen it go as high as 500, 550 at the beginning of spring training. So I think it's super, super undervalued, especially when you look at kind of like the player he is and the type of player he's developing. After he puts on the season, it's gonna look good on his stats, and people I think wanted more out of him, but don't realize that he's doing plenty right now and enough for him at this pace to be one of the greatest hitters of this modern generation. And for me, it's at $300 for a rookie card that is still limited at the end of the day. It's not the population is too high because he only has really one true rookie card, right? So I like Juan Soto, HMT 55 specifically, Topps Chrome update, as the sleeper.
That's a good
nice pick. Yep. I mean, we talked about him last week, right? Yeah. Criminally low, Juan Soto. Okay, so I'm gonna go, and I've mentioned this guy's name before. It's one of my boys. I am to a fault loyal to this guy, but I'm picking Luis Robert. He just got
to say Carl Anthony Towns.
That's another one. I've already used them. Can't use them. Well, I'm going Luis Robert. He just got assigned to Single A. It looks like he's a little bit ahead of schedule. When you look back on, and I'm sure everybody's sort of kicking themselves, but you look back on the prices of Vladdy. Some of these like top hype rookies, Vladdy was, his Chrome was going for $60, $55, back in November of 2020. You look at Ohtani when he was cheap. You look at Tatis way back 18 months ago when he was super cheap. And everybody sits there and regrets, I should have loaded up. And here is that chance. Yeah. Luis Robert, 5-tool athlete. He was having probably one of his best seasons under the radar. Nobody even realized he's having one of his best seasons. His Topps Chrome is $65 PSA 10. I think with the news of him going to Single A right now, might start to creep up. But here's the opportunity to either get into a whole bunch of base, get a couple of refractors at 170 or whatever they're going for, or go for that numbered. Go for that huge card that's going to net you 3x, 5x, 10x. You lock it in a safe. Hyung is we're both big on this guy. I think he's got all the right tools. He's got everything.
He reminds me of you mentioned like that Vladdy comparison when Vladdy was like dirt cheap because everybody kind of like was off of him when he wasn't performing, but he was still the number one prospect. So it's like Luis Roberts, like similar situation. That I remember the hype was so real last year at this time. Exactly 1 year ago, his prices were astronomical, right? And now they're just like one injury shouldn't set. I mean, there's a correction to be had, but not this low, right? So
and that's a deal with guys with pedigree, right? When you're was considered or still are considered one of the top young players in the game, and you have a very down season, but you come back, like these are the opportunities that the image of who you are as a young player, like it'll come back instantly. Like people could have given up on you, but it'll come back instantly. And it doesn't work the same way for some, let's say like a journeyman. I think of like somebody like Fred VanVleet. He could have an amazing season and then have an off season. And because he's not pedigree, he's not a first round pick, he's not a top 5 prospect, people are going to go, oh yeah, I knew it. Like it was kind of like a fluky season, like they'll go the other way. Right. So Luis Robert was on the highest spectrum of hype for good reason. And it's down because people thought he didn't hit as much home runs as he should have. He ended last season batting $190 or whatever he did in the last month. And he started this season really well, just not hitting home runs, and people just didn't notice him. So I'm big on Luis Robert as always.
It's another good pick for sure. And the White Sox are contenders, right?
Oh,
They're
for sure. It's going to be exciting.
Way up and top.
Yeah, 100%.
First place.
Yeah.
So
and
yeah.
Eloy's
Eloy too.
Well, he's
seven
to be
seven
back,
games into rehab too, so he's also another great pick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Eloy would have been I was going to choose Eloy, but no, I'm just kidding.
I was like, oh shoot.
All right, my turn. I actually chose Luka Doncic, and more specifically his Donruss Optic Shock PSA 10. Very
like
specific, I know, but yeah. If you look at the PSA Pop Report, as of now, it stands at 3,424 submitted, and the PSA 10 number is 269. So it's
wow,
less than 10% gem rate. And Optic Shocks, for those who don't know, are notorious for being super difficult to get a PSA 10 in.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, impossible.
And yeah, so like 269 of those right now, and I just looked up recent sales, and one sold on July 4th, so a couple weeks ago, for $900. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's
$900 for sub 1,000. And these went way over 1,000 at the peak of the hobby earlier this year, right? And we're talking about Luka. If there's a good time, right now I see buy it now. It's the cheapest one I see right now is about $1,500, so that's okay. But yeah, like if you wait for some of these auctions, and just because there's only 269 out of them out there, you're not going to see many auctions.
Yeah.
So you got to be patient. But I'm looking for one actually, and I just feel like I don't know where I was when the $900 auction ended.
See, that's why Clark, I told you. Remember when I told you I picked that up? I knew it was too cheap because it was like 1,100 Canadian, and at the time comps were a little higher than 9. It didn't go that low, so I thought I had a really good deal at the time because I was like looking at the gem rate, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous. This is a great supply demand monster long term, right? Because there's a ton out there, but there's not a ton of PSA 10s, right? And it's a great looking card too, eye appeal, like super eye appeal. Yeah.
No, I really like it, and it's one of those cases where the PSA 9s are going for like $300, so it's pretty cheap. But don't be fooled with the PSA 9s because there's like a lot of them out there. There's about almost 1,800 compared to less than 300 for PSA 10. So you want the PSA 10 in this case. Like, for some cards, PSA 9s are just fine. But for the Optic Shocks, I would highly recommend wait for a good price for the PSA 10, like for this particular card. So I think there might be opportunities soon if you're on the lookout every day from this point, just because the basketball season ended. So you might start to see some of these off-season deals. I know we talked about whether there is actually an off-season because of the hype of the hobby, but I feel like last year was just, with COVID, with the shortened season, there was pretty much a zero off-season. It was just like a small break, and then we're back into the season again. So I feel like things are going a little bit back to normal in terms of scheduling. So you'll see a longer, more regular off-season in basketball, in other sports. It'll be longer than you think. So for me, the ready to launch card is Luka Doncic Donruss Optic Shock PSA. Nice 10.
Such good pick, man. Like such an interesting play because it is one of the more common parallels that you can get, and it's turned into kind of like what you can call it like a gem short print, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like we can call this like the junk slab short print, like because it's like it's interesting. And I think
that'll be a good episode for the future.
Uncovering some junk slab short prints. No, but it's crazy to uncover because I think most people it is being slept on because Shock, when you look at it face value, everyone's like, oh yeah, that's like one of the easiest ones to get. It's not worth a lot. But when you really dig deep and you look into the numbers, it's crazy to see 290 or whatever you had. PSA 10s versus like the 35, almost 4,000 submitted. So that's crazy. Like, I know Optic was already a tough grade, but that's pretty insane. So it's a good choice, man.
Yeah, I like all our choices. We'll bring back this segment again in the near future. But with that, that's a wrap for another great episode. We hope you guys enjoyed it out there. And as always, we appreciate your feedback. And even any suggestions you guys have for future episodes, we always welcome them too. So thanks again. And yeah, we'll see y'all next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.